Hello, guys, and welcome to the Legendary Ladies podcast. And today we're talking about a new Netflix movie, May December. I thought it was a gay movie, so I was like, girls, let's watch. Our audience will really like this.
I kept waiting for it to get gay. I want you to know that, Kat, that I was like, okay, now is the time, and then never was the time.
Kat pitches it, and she says, hey, what about this film? It's on Netflix, it's getting a lot of really good buzz, and it's gay.
It's buzzing.
I got half of it, right?
For it.
Well, okay. Benefit of the doubt is that this isn't the same director as Carol, so at least you could understand why I thought it'd be gay. And then I also saw like Autostraddle talking about it. I'm like, so it must be gay.
And all the promo images was like Julianne Moore and like Natalie Portman standing next to each other, like very close to each other.
Swan-esque.
Like, ooh, okay, all right, I could be in for this. And then
Black Swan was gay. There's so much that could have been gay about this, but yes, it's not. And honestly, I went into it not knowing anything, and all of us did, but also a big difference, I think, between, at least I know me and Amy, I don't know if Morgan feels this way. I love watching the Oscar movies. I've been doing it since I was in like high school, probably grammar school, honestly. I've been doing it since Black Swan. So when Black Swan came out, every year I watch like all the Oscar movies, and this is like a big Academy Award movie. So this is like one of the contenders. And that's why I wanted to see it. I was like, oh, I'm wondering like why the buzz is happening. And obviously they don't announce it until like a month before the Academy Awards happen. So I like trying to see the movies that have buzz. So I'm not a month before trying to watch every single movie for the Academy Awards. Mm-hmm. So I try to watch most of them. I won't say I always get to all of them, but I really like doing that. So already I was probably going to watch this movie, and is already kind of in the vein of stuff I enjoy. But, Amy, I have a feeling you don't usually like watching the Academy Award movies.
It's interesting that you bring that up, because you are correct. And it's not that I don't enjoy them. I look at it from a different vein. I look at it, and maybe this is how everybody in our kind of, sphere looks at it. I look at it and say, oh, I see the artistic choices. I see the director choices. I see the actor choices. Like, I look at it and I watch it from that perspective. But a lot of the films are not innately stories that I necessarily enjoy, but I respect the writing, respect the acting, respect the choices, and watch it and go, oh, okay, that's a thing that I like. But I was talking with the girls before the podcast, and within about 3 minutes of watching this film, I said, oh, I don't like this. And it's not
immediately.
It almost immediately. Almost right off the bat, because I was like, that kid is way too young. And as I'm watching the film, at one point, I'm like, I was maybe 35 minutes, and I was like, this is disturbing. And I recognized about myself that I think I just don't like to be disturbed when I'm watching films or reading books or enjoying television. It's why I've never been particularly fond of super grotesque horror stories. It's why I've never been fond of like Orange is the New Black. I know that seems weird, but that's a world that I don't want to know any more about. I like being stuck in the fantasy world, the escapism worlds, because I think I get a little overwhelmed by how disturbing things are. However, you can look at a piece of art and say, that art is disturbing to me. You can listen to music and say, that is not my style. But you can recognize the artistry behind that. And this film was working towards that point. And then once we got to the third act, it clicked for me, and I go, okay, there it is. There's the artistry moments that I really wanted. When Natalie Portman's character, when the actress Elizabeth starts actively transitioning into Gracie's character, and started there was one moment where she got the lisp. I don't know if you guys
that was good. Yeah. Oh no,
yeah.
for sure.
I'm sure you did. But there was one moment where all of a sudden she got the lisp, and the scene before had made it extra clear. And it snapped, and I go, oh, there it is. I go, right there, that's the Oscar. That's the moment that's gonna win.
See, I don't think she's gonna get the Oscar. I think it's gonna be the guy. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, he's gonna get the Oscar for sure. Because right now, I think Lily, I forgot her last name, but the actress for Killer of the Flower Moon is a very, 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 very big contender to get Best Actress. So I don't think Natalie Portman is going to get it. So I think she's going to definitely get it, but he will most likely be up for Best Supporting Actor, and I do think he's going to win. I think the only thing this movie can win is Best Supporting Actor, and I would say Honestly, I think that's it. I think that's the only thing this movie's going to win. But it's going to be nominated for a lot of stuff. I think it'll be nominated for Best Picture, probably directing. But really, that's the only thing I think it's going to win for.
So I know. Oh, sorry. I was going to say, I know we went into the movie not knowing anything about it was what it was about. I feel like maybe a lot of our listeners are like, oh, I haven't gotten to it yet. So just as an FYI, this movie is about a
wait, hold on. Spoilers. I genuinely, if you're this kind of a person, like, honestly, do not read the synopsis at all. Don't read the one sentence that Netflix gives you. This film is worth watching completely.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, especially the first 10 cold.
Yes, it's worth figuring out what's going on and being like, what the hell?
They give you clues, especially the first 10 minutes where you're like, okay, what is this family? And then you get to see like newspaper clippings of like, oh, that's what it's about. So Morgan, give us the rundown.
So it's about Natalie Portman's character who had a name. I remember
Elizabeth.
She
was the only one I didn't remember. I knew the other two.
Yeah, who goes to shadow a woman named Gracie, who because they're making a movie about her, and Gracie is famous or infamous because she had an affair with a 13-year-old and then had children and later got married. And so the movie is obviously going to be like the tabloid version of the story, but she wants to Natalie Portman's character like wants to get to know like the real Gracie. And then the movie, I've seen it described as a dark comedy. I don't understand how people came to that or where they came to that.
I think it's the music. I think anytime something dramatic happens, like
the music instantly, the music and the opening sequence immediately made me think of one of those made-for-TV murder documentaries.
Well,
you know, Amy, which they bring up.
In the end, the last scene, so something I really want to talk about, because the last scene, I won't say, this movie and something I love about, like, I love a good movie that doesn't give you an answer. Real spoiler alert, but the end of this movie is that, so there's two parts of the story. There's one part which is about obviously this kid who was 13 who had no choice of his own to be in this relationship with this woman, which is the main part of the story of being a victim. But then the other part is how an actress or actor can get so into a part, and then by the end you find out it's really a made-for-TV movie, that she did all this research and did all this for a bad movie.
I don't think it's a made-for-TV movie.
I just think it's a bad
supposed
movie.
It's supposed to be like a B movie. So one thing I was very curious about, because I was like, oh, that's where it ends. I wonder where this went. Natalie Portman in an interview said that. She said that, oh, it's so funny because it's like, this is a B movie. And that's the whole point of like it. That's why she takes another take, because she feels like it's not good enough. Well, there's two answers to that. She thought it wasn't good enough, but then also when she learns that the Gracie was not attacked by her brothers, she loses the character. That's why like the lisp is gone. She completely loses the character. So those were like the two realizations in the end of A, meta acting is probably not worth it, but B, this was a bad movie.
I definitely got, that's definitely the impression that I got, is that A, she's not that great of an actress, and B, it's not that good of a movie for all the, you know, the effort that she put into it, that it's like probably a pretty small budget movie. It's not like a huge Hollywood production. And in fact, you can kind of get hints of that throughout the movie, because there's at one point where she's on the phone with the director who she's like fully having an affair with. And he says to her that she's taking too long in this like research project, and she's like, well, then the crew will just have to get mugs instead of sweatshirts.
Well, and another way to learn too is that if you watch the film, like, because one thing I was questioning in the first like 10 minutes, like, oh, she's a celebrity, like everyone should notice her, and then you kind of notice like she's an actress from that one show that maybe two people know.
It's like a veterinarian, Grey's Anatomy.
Yeah.
But
which I thought was funny.
I liked the okay, let me rephrase that. I got annoyed with the bit whenever that popped up, the piano music, but it very much had that like vibe of where you were expecting the narrator to come on and be like, and 3 days later, Gracie found out she would be locked up forever. You were expecting that like murder mystery narrative, and that it played into that. It almost gave this idea of, not the idea, it played into this concept of a really rich sort of a character that, and an actress, and this person who thinks that she's an amazing actress, and she's really just kind of stuck in in something that's not really that, it's not that profound, but it also is. Like, this whole story is wild.
It's the whole story kind of feels like watching Inception, because it's like it's about an actress like mirroring a character so she can be better in a movie, and you're like, well, I'm watching a movie. And then it's also kind of, it feels like sort of a backhanded critique about like true crime dramas about real people, but it's obviously based on a true crime about a real person. So that was actually something that I really wanted to ask you guys, because you guys are a little bit younger than me. What is your familiarity with the Mary Kay Letourneau case?
I knew about it when I searched this movie and found out it was based on a real thing.
Okay, so yes, this was a I guess a mid to early 90s thing. Because I was looking over the details on the Wikipedia, and I was like, oh, 90, like 97. I don't think that they're gonna have that much memories of this. So Mary Kay Letourneau is who the Gracie character is based off of. And if you just do a search for her and look at what she looks like, and then look at what Julianne Moore looks like in the movie, like the makeup is the same. Like if you watch an interview, like the voice is similar. So she was a school teacher, which is somehow worse than the character in the movie. And she had an affair with like her 12-year-old or 13-year-old student. And then she would go on to like have 2 kids by him, go to jail, obviously. And then when she got out of jail, they got married. So then it became, and I think this happened in like 2004, 2005. So then it became a big story again. So she was
still married?
So thank God they got divorced around 2000 something, longer than you think they were married. They were married for like 12 or 15 years.
Which was kind of the point of this movie too, because something that kind of leaves you on the cliffhanger of like, oh, are they going to stay married or not? So I was curious in the real story if they are, because if they aren't, I feel like you kind of at least play your own theory that they're probably going to get a divorce.
Yeah, in the real life, they got divorced in like 2017 or 2018, I think.
That's still
and then
a long time.
She actually passed away in 2020.
Wow.
So yeah, she had some sort of cancer or something. So she died a little bit young at like 58. But yeah, they were divorced at that, or separated or something at the time that she passed away. So, but it's funny that they're like making a movie that's kind of making fun of like true crime movies while making a true crime movie. So there's like there's layers. It's like you go one layer down there. It's like, wait, are they the thing that they're making fun of though?
That's what I thought was so. Oh, we're gonna say, Amy.
No, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say that's what I thought was so fascinating about this movie. And again, I like a good movie where you get to think a little bit, and I like a good movie that doesn't spell out an ending, and also something that has a lot of that feels simple but is so much more complex. In this movie, the way it's shot feels really simple and feels very indie, but then the little attention to details and mostly in the acting, but even the makeup, like you were saying, Morgan's like, oh, she looks a lot like the real person, because it's like the little things they did with makeup. They didn't go over the top, but it made it, even with Natalie Portman's character, how she was kind of
the lipstick
coming, the lipstick, the pink lipstick in particular. And another thing I really want, well, let's talk about the acting for a second. I just thought everyone in this movie was so good. Like, I was convinced by every single person, all the way from Gracie's character being convinced that she's a good person. And, obviously what we were talking about earlier in the podcast, the actor who plays Joe, the way he transformed in that role, he's the Riverdale guy. He's in Riverdale. The way his body language was so on point, like the way he slouched, and the way you think he's just like a 13-year-old kid because he never grew up, and that was so true. And I love the scenes where he talked about like his caterpillars, because like the thing that he really liked, he really nerded out of, and it's like it's his thing. It's the only thing he kind of owns. And yeah, no, he was a really fascinating character and a very heartbreaking character. But this is very much a character piece, which I love, and I feel like what's such a shame is that these movies don't go in theaters anymore. Because character pieces are cheaper to make, This was made in less than 30 days, this movie. It's a very much an indie
Really?
film. Yeah, it was a 20-something day film that they filmed this. And, you know, it has to be a Netflix movie. And, you know, hopefully once the Oscars come around, more people will watch it. But it's a movie, if you love movies, you'll watch it. But other than that, you probably don't know about it. And I think that's such a shame because these character pieces, I think, are so great. And we always have these bombastic movies like Aquaman is coming out and all these others. And I wish the quieter movies come out in theaters more often.
You know, it's interesting. When I was watching this film, my thought throughout the entire film was, I don't know if I like watching this. I wish I was acting it. And that's something that strikes a lot of people who do act and who do perform. We were talking about it one time with a whole bunch of people at a Shakespeare workshop. And we were all talking about like what got you into Shakespeare. And a common theme was we weren't really into Shakespeare. We didn't really enjoy Shakespeare until you do Shakespeare. And people were talking about how the best way to enjoy Shakespeare is to perform in it. And I remembered watching this and I was like, this would be so much fun to be in, to create those characters and to create the nuance. So even though like the story itself disturbed me in a way that I guess it's a good thing. Like I have enjoyed, we did one production where I was in a show that was so deeply disturbing that at the end no one knew if they were supposed to clap or not. Like there were multiple nights where no one clapped at the end of the show because they were like, what do we think about this? There's something really powerful about presenting something like that. And I see it from that, guys. And so I respect how hard the actors worked to create these characters and how willing they were to go all the way. And I think that's something that's so important in film is when people are just like, we're just gonna do it. They were like, this is a scene where Natalie Portman's character is just gonna show up in the pet shop and decide to pretend she's having a sex scene with herself in the hallway.
It was
and
so
you know
weird.
It was so weird. And yet you sit there and you're like, hot damn, Natalie Portman. All right, I respect your riz. Like, this is great.
And then it made that monologue even stronger because that monologue was so interesting.
So
and it was so, yeah. And it's just like, wow, she did great in that. But Morgan, I think we know I like this movie. We know that Amy appreciates it, but was disturbed. Morgan, where do you lie on the scale here?
I think I'm like between you guys, whereas like
as always.
Yeah,
this is so great. We're just such a perfect trio here.
We're just a continuum. Yeah, where it's like I respected what it was doing. I liked a lot of like the performances were really great. It looked great. I can't believe that they filmed it in like a month. But it was maybe a little too long. I kind of wish like the back half of it I think was really strong, like the last third. One of you guys said that, but like yeah, I wish that we had gotten to that a little bit faster. And I also like the tone of it was so weird because again I said I've seen people referring to it as a dark comedy because there is that sort of element of like the do the music comes in and like she's like, where are the hot dogs, you know? Or
that was a good line.
And it's like what, but then it's dealing with a very serious subject matter. It's just kind of like the tone is all over the place, which I think is by design, but it does like give you like a weird viewing experience where you're like, what, like you're halfway through and you're like, what is this movie?
I think that's what I like about it. What were you saying, Amy?
Well, I think part of like breaking down where that comes from is I think that it takes a while for us to recognize who is or is not the most interesting character. I think you start out thinking, okay, Natalie's Portman character, she is the A character. Like Gracie is the A character. But then all of a sudden Joe becomes the most interesting character and his story becomes the most interesting part. But it takes so long to get there that I think that if they had established maybe a little sooner that Joe was, that he was more integral to this. I think if they had brought in his story and his concerns and his, you know, I guess they do. They try to bring it in with the texting and the monarchs and the butterflies, and that whole thing in and of itself is a metaphor that we can talk about. But
and do you think his arc would be as strong if they showed it so early on? Because I think the whole point of the movie is that he didn't know he was trapped until the end. So if you show it in the beginning, then he kind of knows already. But the whole point is that he thinks it's okay until he realizes it's not.
I think that's a fair point, and I think that's where I sit there and I debate with myself. I was like, okay, it felt sluggish at the beginning, but at the same time, I know why they did that. So it's one of those things where I think Morgan Navy could have been just a smidgen shorter. Like, we could have cut the weird, awkward band scene where she's talking with that guy. I don't think we needed that, because ultimately, in the end, the story that affected Elizabeth, the actress's choice, the most was learning about Joe. I don't think we needed some of the other perspectives in that story. But I mean, I respect why it was there.
I think it's interesting that the actress Elizabeth learned things about Joe and learned things about Gracie, but ultimately, again, doesn't learn anything. And maybe that's what's so interesting about this movie too, is the complexities of people. Like, we try to put people in boxes, and it's like, well, this is the story, this is the narrative. There's this side, and that's it. And I feel like she kind of figured out, wait, I don't know who the hell this person is, because in the beginning, she's just this like painted as she thinks she's the victim, and then and in the middle she does too, after Joe's monologue, she's like, well, I was seduced by you, which was crazy. But then by the end she talks about like, oh, well, I kind of take charge of the situation, you don't think I'm taking charge of the situation. So she's a character full of contradictions, which is what people are. People contradict all the time. And I find that the most fascinating, because Elizabeth's always searching for the truth, and there is no truth, because one day that's your truth, but then the next day it's not, because that's what human beings do. And I found that very interesting.
And I thought it was really interesting how, yeah, like she's trying to get to the truth of this character who is like essentially kind of a pathological liar, and somebody who's sort of not able to even admit things to herself. Like, we talked about the scene where she says, like, you seduced me, to somebody who was 13 years old. Like, that's not how it works. But also, like, earlier in the movie, Natalie Portman's character asks her, like, oh, like, what's the relationship like with your son? And she's like, oh, it's great, of course. And then she meets the son, and the son is obviously has a very terrible relationship with his mother, who had an affair with his classmate. And like, sort of all along, she's sort of saying things to make her life seem like much better than it is. Like, oh, I sort of have this great relationship with my kids, even though you see that she's like, sort of emotionally manipulative and like sort of emotionally abusive to her kids, her daughters especially.
The weight stuff was a lot.
The weight, and with all of the kids too. Because I forgot at one point she tells the son that he needs to put on like weight so that he has like more muscles when he goes to college, which is like, given her history, is like a really weird thing to say. And it's like, what can you trust? Like, you're trying to get to the truth of this woman who, like, there's no truth. Like, she's lying to herself. How are you going to know what the truth is?
And she has a booming business for cakes that no one wants to buy.
That no one wants to. Yeah, like, her whole life is an illusion of being like, oh no, look at how well things are going. And actually they're not going very well at all.
And her breakdowns were really interesting, especially when Joe had to like comfort her. It was very weird relationship where he's like, yeah, this cake is really, he was just a really fascinating character, because like he played the role of like, I'm gonna like kind of parent you, but then at the same time was a kid. It was like, he used so many different things. What are you gonna say, Amy?
Well, and I think that the casting choice to pick someone who is supposed to be 36 but looks about 9, I think that was just right off the bat. You're like,
you think he looks 9?
Not 9. I'm being exaggeratory.
He did play a high school in Riverdale, so there you go.
Like, they picked a baby-faced actor, so even though he was supposed to be young, they made him look young. Like, it makes the difference stark. So I just want to talk before we close out. When we close out, I want to bring up the butterflies. Because I think that the butterfly metaphor was so powerful. At first, it was really annoying. I was like, what's with the butterflies? But we're artistic people. We're sitting there going, this is going to be a metaphor. And so the idea symbolism, the idea of metamorphosis and growth, and, a character that starts out as a young character with no future is then brought in and protected by someone else. But in this story, eventually that butterfly gets to go free. And that moment where he lets the butterfly go, but he is still trapped in that house, is so powerful. And I think
his kids, he's letting his kids go too, and he's not going anywhere.
Yes. He's not going anywhere. Like, that was a really well done choice. specifically not just I'm raising butterflies, but him bringing up the fact that he goes and he brings these eggs in to keep them safe because he's the one who can keep them safe. And now he is in control of that situation. But eventually he gives up that control and the monarch butterfly has to go and fly and be on its own and succeed. And he literally says the monarch butterfly population is thriving now because of all the work we did, where maybe, yes, we protected these animals, but then we let them fly, is so powerful because he doesn't get that chance. So that's one of those things where I sit there and I'm like, yes, well done, excellent metaphor use.
Yeah, no, I thought that was really well done too. And he's like protecting these, little future butterflies the way he was never protected. And then he like lets them go out into the world the way he never really got to go out into the world. I think you see that most clearly in that scene with his son on the roof, where his son is like smoking pot and he's like, I've never done that. Like, and he like has some weed with his son for the first time, but like you think that there's probably like a ton of stuff he didn't get to do. Like we don't know anything about we don't know that much about his background, but like we don't know when he got to, if and when he went to college or like what his experiences are.
Is he a doctor? Because I think he's a doctor. So that was
he a doctor? I thought he was like I thought he might be an X-ray technician.
Oh, maybe. I didn't.
But I mean,
that.
you still need some school for that. But like
an interaction with other people.
Yeah, but it kind of it felt like he was he didn't get a lot of those very like normal teenage experiences of like going out to parties probably, or kind of going out on his own because he had this messed up relationship with this much older woman, and like how that kind of stunted his growth. And how he's getting to see his kids have all these experiences like maybe he never got to have.
So stepping into one of the more adult factors of this, that is incredibly evident when he and Elizabeth have sex.
Oh, sure,
and he lasts for about 20 seconds. And that was such a deliberate choice. And it's funny because it's fascinating because you can see it in Elizabeth's face. She recognizes, she's like, this kid has had vanilla his entire life. He has never even known that there are other ice cream flavors out there. And so it makes sense that even though he's a full-grown adult who has kids going to literal college, he's never been to a point where he has achieved that level of satisfaction that quickly. Or maybe he does. Maybe there's a different relationship between him and Elizabeth in bed. That whole weird thing where he had to put on the oil. But I thought that was really well done. It was a good writing choice.
Elizabeth was just such a bad person.
I thought it was interesting that like while she's telling him that like he should get out of this bad relationship, which he should, but like she's also infantilizing him because when he's like, I thought you liked me, like why did you do that? Like why did we do this then? And she was like, oh, it's just what adults do. While she's talking to somebody her own age. But like she doesn't see him as an adult really. Like she sees him kind of like the way that it feels like the way that Gracie sees him, like as somebody who can be easily manipulated because they're like young.
And also, I think it's interesting because it's like she's using them as escapism and using acting as escapism because she's got shit going on with her fiance and her life.
Yeah, and she's
like, yeah,
I don't want the director and
right, and she doesn't want to deal with that,
No, go ahead. Sorry, Kat.
No, I was just gonna say it's just very interesting because she kind of has her own issues in that regard, is that she doesn't even want to be. She's gotten so fascinated by this role. Once she gets to that point, she is Gracie in a way, and she's just like a bad person. I'm guessing she's always been a bad person, but it's fascinating because you would think the POV character would be like helping him out, and it's like she is kind of helping him out, saying like get out of this relationship, but she's not doing it in.
It's not because she cares. Yeah, it's not because she cares. I think you kind of see her. I think she kind of relates to Gracie. She says at one point on the phone with, I think it's her like fiance, like it's kind of amazing. Like, she feels no guilt at all. And her fiance is like, yeah, that sounds like a sociopath. And she's like, but wouldn't it be great? Like, to operate in the world that way, like to just go through and like do bad things and not feel bad about them. And like, I think you almost see that Elizabeth's character is like kind of in awe of Gracie. Like, she kind of understands
Idolizes
Gracie's
her.
idolizes her, understands her point of view.
Now, you guys know I have to jet in just a couple minutes, but I want to ask this question because you two are making it sound like you see Elizabeth as the villain. I did not see her as a villain.
I don't know
I
if
did
there
not
is a
see
villain.
her as a bad person.
I saw her as a bad person.
I think she's a bad person. Yeah, I would say I don't think she's the villain, but I don't think she's a good person.
I don't think she's. I don't think she's.
Person.
Yeah,
but I don't think she's inherently a bad person. I think
what makes
this
her
is just
not
the
bad?
Way she's
Yeah.
decided. I don't think she's cruel. To me,
I do.
Cruelty.
Yeah.
So
I think like the way she treated Joe in the end was pretty cruel.
Yeah. I mean, I
Okay,
feel
I
like
guess
she's like
convinced
more.
me.
Yeah, I feel like she's more of just like self-centered than she is like purposely cruel. But like unless it benefits her in some way, she's not interested. Like, she's not going to go out of her way to help somebody.
I think she's cruel because she purposely went into these people's lives. Because, okay, it depends on how you see is ignorance is bliss or not. Like, they were all kind of satisfied with their lives until she entered and kind of disrupted it all because she wanted to make a little movie, right? So in that way, isn't she cruel?
But she explains earlier on that it's not about the movie. She's more fascinated with character. And the fact that they are filming this movie that she's paying money for, and she says, no, do it again, so that I can get the character right. I think she is more interested in becoming this person than in profiting from it. So I think that's almost sociopathic in a way.
I think she's really fascinated by Gracie in a way that's not healthy. But like, I think she's very self-centered and like just doesn't even think about other people. There's a scene in the high school where she's first off where she goes on a really weird tangent about sex scenes to a bunch of like 15-year-olds where you're like, what are you doing?
I immediately added that monologue to my monologue book.
It's so weird. It's so weird. Like, I can't imagine somebody saying that in a class of like 17-year-olds. And then she mentions that she likes like complex kind of bad people characters and gestures to Gracie's daughter, like obviously that girl's mom, and and the daughter gets really mad, and she doesn't even clock it that the daughter was offended by that, or that the daughter is even upset, because to the Elizabeth character, like feelings and emotions that happen outside of herself are like not her issue, not her problem.
Well, and that's why I think it's complicated because, like, there's the question of she's not profiting off of this movie, but she is making a movie, and what she cares about is the art of this movie. She wants to become this character because she wants to be the best actress she can be. She wants to the whole movie is a commentary on method acting, and is it a good thing or a bad thing? So in that regard, are people method acting because they want to make money? Some, sure. Honestly, I would say no. I would say every method actor is doing method acting to act. Are some actors doing acting to make money? Yeah, that's actually a huge conversation in the past month of that the character played Snow White, and now what's his face from Willy Wonka, the
Timothy Chalamet?
The Chalamet?
No, the other, not Chalamet, but the other one who's older, and he plays one of the Oompa Loompa
Hugh
characters.
Grant?
Yeah, Hugh Grant. He said, I have a lot of kids and I love them, and I hated this movie, but I'm doing this movie. Same thing as the guy played Elvis and was in Saltburn. He said, I hated being in the kissing booth, but I needed the money.
I mean, this has gone way back though. Our Pats, our beloved our Pats and Kristen Stewart were pretty explicit that they were like at some point mostly doing those Twilight movies for the money, and they actually hated them. So yeah, but yeah, this is an example of somebody doing the art for the art.
But then that's the question. That's the selfishness, and I think the cruelty is that she is doing it for the sake of art and character, but she is not actually, like, she is doing it for the sake of a movie. She's not doing it again to find the truth, to try to. She's not
Yeah,
I don't think she's actually trying to figure out like why these are good people. She just like wants to be an actor, be like, let's see how they're complex, you know?
But like looking at it from an actress perspective, it is so liberating to be someone that you're not. Because there is a part of you as a complex, normal human that you're in a situation where you're mad and you're about to say something that's going to hurt someone else. But there's that thing in your brain that tells you don't say that. But as an actress, there might be a character where you do get to say that. Those filters in your brain that tell you to stop and not act on this or not say that thing, you get to disappear into a different character and say the things and act the things and do the things that you would never do in real life. And it is so liberating.
Question for you,
It's like
and this
therapy.
goes into the method acting aspect. There's, again, people who are really for it and people that are really against it. Like there is, but that's the question is it okay to lose yourself in a character so much that during the film you become that character and you're mean to people around you? Because I think that's the point of this too, is like she is a method actor, so she's able to be this kind of mean person because she is playing a mean person.
Part of it too is I wonder if she just had no frame of reference for how to do this. Maybe she's played characters that are so completely different. Like if you're a character who always gets cast as the queen or the villain or the power characters, and now you're asked to play, docile little background character, servant character. Like, what if you're not that kind of a person? Do you then ask for opinions? Do you, like, I do research. I go on and I look at, okay, well, how would a youthful person walk? How would a youthful person talk? And I ask, like, we had the kids in Sleepy Hollow. I would literally ask them, like, hey, how would you say this? Or how would you walk this way? Or like, do you actually skip? I literally was like, do you actually skip at school? Like when you're happy and you're going to class really fast. And one of the girls was like, yeah, because it's fun. And I was like, right, because it's fun. So you do ask these questions, but I don't know if it necessarily makes her selfish. I think it's just the way that she has developed her art. But what I think makes her that unlikable character that you could argue is villainous or cruel is that she doesn't care how it affects other people. My first question, whenever I'm doing that kind of research, is, hey, do you mind if I ask you this question? And please tell me if you don't want to answer it. Like, that is just, that's normal for me. Tell me if you're not interested in answering this. In this case, she kind of gives them an out. She says, hey, if it's too much, tell me to go. But then she does, but then she comes
back.
Exactly. She doesn't respect those
She's not going.
That's an issue.
She's like, I'm going to that graduation. But she's invited to that dinner. Oh, yeah, Amy does have to go.
I got a jet.
Your final thoughts.
I appreciate the artistic value of this. I am going to use a couple of the monologues from it in my monologue book. But otherwise, I will never watch this again. Why is it called May December? We didn't get to that. Why is it called May December?
Yes.
Real fast.
This is interesting because my husband also didn't know why it was called May December. So a May December romance is like a term for a romance between two people with a big age difference. So it's the months are meant to symbolize the seasons. Spring is like supposed to represent the youth, and the winter is supposed to represent old age. It's December because it's like the end of the calendar, like the end of your life, and then May is like the beginning of spring, like you're just starting out. So if you ever hear of somebody say a May December romance, it just means that there's like a big age difference.
Now I know.
Got it. And we would have then had a better idea of what the film is if we knew that when going in.
Yeah, I was like, is this about like I thought the age difference might be about like her and Natalie Portman though. So.
Which is hilarious. Okay, I got a jet, but you guys have fun. Thanks to the listeners for listening. Bye.
Hi, Amy.
Bye, Amy.
I know it was good to get the conversation from Amy about the method acting. So again, like from us, our point of view, we're not actors, but it to me, it was just more of like, man, she's just so selfish. Because it's hard because I think the only good character here is Joe. Like even like in the beginning when he's texting that person, I was like, yeah, you honestly go boy. Like you could cheat on her. Who cares?
Get out of there.
But even so, he wasn't even really until the end. Until the end, it seemed like he wanted to, but like he wasn't cheating on her.
He wasn't really cheating. He was like it almost seemed like he was trying to imagine some other life than the life, this kind of sad life that he already had. He's like looking for a way out. I feel like if that the girl on the Facebook group who we never see, which I actually think was like a nice addition, that we don't know what she looks like, we don't know anything about her except that they both like help butterflies. But I think that if she was like, yeah, let's go on that trip, he'd be like, okay. Like you can tell he's sort of at a point where he's trying to get out, but he doesn't know how, because he's been with this woman since he was 13 years old. So like he doesn't know how to function probably outside of this relationship.
No, and that's so prevalent for sure. And no, Joe, like he's a good person, and that's, it's like, even to his kids, that's the one thing you really saw, is that he was a good dad. Like his kids liked him, and maybe because they were close in age, but he was a good dad. And he really, the two women, man, I thought they were both villainous in different ways, and I think it would have been really interesting, and maybe to add another layer, to see Natalie Portman like meet like a scene or two before this, to see like if she was normal before
yes
this.
I think that was kind of neat. Like I think you got glimpses of that, like when she talks to her fiance and when she talks to that director, that she is just overall not a good person, and this like it's not this experience that has turned her into a kind of a bad person. She was a bad person coming into this, but I do think that it would have been helpful to be like, was she normal, or was she just a weirdo before she got into the situation? Because there's also reading on this movie, whereas like if you saw her earlier on, she's normal, then it just becomes like a, like sort of temporary madness where she gets like wrapped up in these people's lives and like she goes too far. But
which I kind of like more.
Yeah, that actually might be a little bit like, that might also be super interesting to be like, how deep you can get in other people's drama and then like lose yourself in it. But based on like the fact that she's like currently having an affair with her director, and like the fact that she doesn't seem like she cares that much about other people, her fiance included, you can kind of come to that, like, she's not that, doesn't feel like she's going that far astray from like what her personality is by soaking up the Gracie personality.
Which is why I was interested in Amy's comment. If she was able to be on a little longer, I probably would have asked even more. Like Amy saying that, like, oh, I don't think she's actually a bad person. But I'm like, there's not a part of her that seems good. Like there's not one scene here that I was like, yo, she could be good.
No, sometimes you see her reacting to some of the crazy stuff that Gracie's doing with like a little bit of a and that's like the closest
she's a human being.
Yeah, the closest I felt to like her maybe being a decent person under there. But yeah, there's really, you can't point to like, oh, she was nice to this one person in this one scene, or she did that one thing that was like, was helping somebody out, because there really isn't there. She's self-centered the entire movie, like from start to close pretty much.
Good scene is that when the girl's trying on the dress, and like you said, she kind of cringes a little bit at the mom's comments, but when she's at the table at dinner, she doesn't cringe at the other daughter, which I was confused. I guess there's 3 kids, so the twins come later, and then I realized, oh, that was the first kid. And then she doesn't really, from what I remember, cringe at the second time it happens.
No, when the older daughter is like, oh, did you give my sister a scale for a graduation like you gave me? I was like, oh, that's such a messed up gift. But yeah, you're right. She doesn't, I think that at that point she has been so far into like being immersed in these people's lives that like she's starting to incorporate more of the Gracie into her, and like is maybe just not as shocked by some of these messed up things that this crazy woman is doing, especially to her family, because she's just kind of used to it now. Like it's become normalized, which probably is also how like Joe feels. Like this stuff that we go, oh my God, it's probably been so normalized for him that he doesn't realize how messed up it is. And you kind of see him start to come to that conclusion towards the end of the movie, where he's like, oh, like I haven't thought about all this stuff in a really long time, but like, why don't we ever talk about it? Why don't we think, like, it was kind of messed up what happened between the two of us. And the fact that she won't, even at that point where they've been together for like, what, 15 or so years, 20 years.
I think it was 20 something. Yeah.
Yeah. Even at that point, she can't admit that like she did anything wrong, that she tries to throw it back on him and say that he, as a 13-year-old, seduced her is crazy.
She cried about being in jail, and then I don't know how she got out, if I'm being honest. I don't know how she got out of jail.
I know. Well, it's funny because she says a couple of times in the movie, like, I'm so naive. I'm just really naive. But there's like nothing that feels naive about this woman or this character at all. Like it's a very carefully constructed persona that the Gracie character has, that like she's just naive and like I'm just kind of like I'm a nice woman. I'm a nice mom. I didn't do anything wrong. How would I have known that you're not supposed to have affairs with 13-year-olds? Who could? Nobody told me.
No one said that was a law.
It's just so unbelievable.
Which is interesting because there's so many scenes where she knows it was wrong, because there's other characters who say like, yeah, she knew she broke the law. And I think there was, I don't remember which character it was, but she reveals to this person, one of the interviews that Elizabeth has, where she's like, yeah, so like I cheated on my husband. He's like, yeah, but that's not against the law. He's like, no, I cheated on my husband with a 13-year-old. He's like, oh, okay, that is against the law. So she knows, she knew it was against the law.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of why the letter that he gives to Elizabeth at the end has so much meaning. First, that he kept it, because I think a part of him was like, this is messed up what's happening, but just he couldn't acknowledge it. But the letter is basically like, I know that we shouldn't be together, and we can't be together, but let's do it anyway. And here's specifically how we should lie about it. And so her whole thing was like, oh, we were just so in love, and how was I to know? And I was too naive to realize that you can't have affairs with children. And then there's like a letter saying like, yeah, no, I absolutely know this is wrong. Like, here's how we're going to like try to get away from everybody knowing that this is going to happen. And here's how we're going to be together. And like, I understand that like it's a big age difference, but like we're in love or whatever. And I think that was sort of the power of that monologue that she does at the end, which stupidly, it took me like maybe a minute or two into that monologue to be like, oh, is that the letter? That's the letter she's reading. Because and at first I was just like, what is she doing? Is she just like dissociating here?
I mean, she probably is also as well just doing that.
Yeah, that's true.
But the scene with Joe and Gracie was so interesting when he finally kind of reveals those feelings. And again, it goes back to body language. I think the actor just does such a good job with that scene where he and then in the end, she convinces him, oh yeah, no, everything's okay. And he kind of, I don't want to say goes along with it, but he doesn't fight back. And even again, in the graduation, he's kind of trapped. There's even a cage. I mean, there's the fence where you literally see him behind a fence trying. Yeah. So it's like he's still caged. And I think that's what's, again, so fascinating about this movie is you don't really know how it ends. I think it's most movies we do for this channel sometimes like, oh man, what are we going to talk about for an hour about this movie? But this is something, because the characters are so interesting, you could talk about this movie forever and never really get, where it's, your interpretation of it. Your interpretation is always going to be different.
Yeah, I agree. The one thing I did really like about this movie is like the layers, all the layers that you can sort of read into it, where in certain places it is campy and kind of funny, but like in a dark, messed up way. And in some places it's like really dramatic. And then when you think about like the fact that it's making fun of Elizabeth for like trying to like do this acting thing where she's like kind of putting acting above people's feelings while they're making a movie. And then there's sort of like the meta commentary on like movies based on true stories and like true crime kind of movies while they're making a movie based on a true story. It's like there's so many layers to this story that I feel like you could really like get in there and like go through all the symbolism and things like that in this movie. And that is one of the things I liked about it, is it does feel like there's like, it's some movies you watch and there's one layer and you're like, cool, I like that layer, or I don't like that layer. This movie, there's like 10 layers, and you could like probably spend a long time talking about each individual part.
And I thought the script was really good for it too. I feel like the way information's conveyed in this film was really interesting. Because again, there's things that we're just kind of analyzing and be like, oh, this is how the daughter felt. This is how the son felt. But it's really just us looking at a scene and analyzing what we think they felt. Because no one really spells out their feelings in this movie.
That is really true. And I think we've gotten used to in some movies, like characters being like, I'm sad because,
Right.
and like not really trusting the audience to like bring their own interpretations or like put things together. And this movie, like, yeah, you're reading between the scenes. Like, there's definitely, I feel like you could probably read that scene where the girl tries on the dresses and maybe not even notice the how messed up and passive aggressive she is,
Sure.
like, because she's like, oh, you look so beautiful, you're so brave to have like a sleeveless dress. And you could, if you weren't, looking too hard, you could be like, oh yeah, and then she tried on a different dress.
And the
But
daughter hardly even realizes it. Like subconsciously she knows like, ooh, okay, like this sucks. Like I don't want to feel this way about my body, but she doesn't say anything. She's just like, yeah, I'll try on a different dress.
yeah, she just like quietly goes, and she makes like, she kind of does the Gracie thing where she like makes an excuse for why she wants a different dress. Like
Mm-hmm.
she doesn't want to say like, oh, what you said just hurt my feelings and now I don't want to wear this dress. She's like, I think another one of my friends has this dress. I should go try on something else. Something with
Right.
giant
Yeah.
puffy sleeves.
Yeah, and the kids are super interesting in it. I kind of wish we saw the other family a little bit more because I think that's the only thing where I'm like, either have them or don't. Because there's obviously the moments where you realize like her kids, the age of her current
Her
husband.
grandkids.
Yeah,
Yeah.
her
That was
grandkids too. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I can't remember how many older kids they said she had, but I feel like if you had just kept it to like maybe Georgie and one other kid and
That
shown that,
girl,
yeah.
the daughter, because there's that daughter who like says, "Oh, I feel like she says it's nice to meet you." She's actually kind of nice about it, and then leaves.
Yeah, she's like, Great seeing
Yeah,
you." But
bye.
yeah, I think I'm not sure if the joke about the grandkids being as old as the kids was worth like introducing this other child that we don't get any insight into her relationship with. Like,
Hmm.
we know some things about her relationship with Georgie, but we don't know anything about her relationship with this other daughter who like, just disappears. The other thing I thought was interesting, and I think Amy said it, or one of you guys said it earlier, was that like Elizabeth loses the character once she realizes that the thing that Georgie told her
Yeah.
about the mother being assaulted by her brothers was fake. But was it fake?
Well, that's the question. So again, that's what Natalie Portman said. It's like, oh, when
Yeah.
she finds out it's fake, but that's just her interpretation. That's what's so great about this movie because you could say she's lying. Who the hell knows? And then that throws off obviously Elizabeth's character because in her head she thinks, oh yeah, she was telling the truth, but we don't know if she's telling the truth or not. Who knows who the hell anyone's telling the truth of in this
Because
movie?
my interpretation was that was absolutely true.
Sure.
Because she kind of reacts to it the same way that she reacts to any other like unpleasant fact about her life, which is being like, it's kind of the same way she talks about her relationship with her son earlier in the movie, where she kind of hesitates and she's like, oh no, of course we have a great relationship, and then you meet him and he's like, I hate my mom. And
He's not a good guy either.
no, his life has truly been ruined by this whole situation. But she says something to like to Elizabeth like, oh, I hope that you didn't believe that disgusting thing that Georgie told you. But like, in what way would we like, for why would we trust Gracie as a reliable narrator at this point, because she's lied about so much other stuff. And it would obviously behoove her to have this not be true, because it seems like it's something that she hasn't been able to truly deal with, especially because the follow-up question that Elizabeth has after he says that like she was sexually assaulted by her brothers was, oh my God, she still talks to them. It's crazy that she still talks to them. So it seems like Gracie has been able to compartmentalize things. And if something is bad or scary in her life, she just like puts it in a little box and shoves it into the corner and just tells herself that's not real. So my interpretation was that
Which at
that
least
absolutely happened.
I cannot understand. I mean, I can understand how she could do it, but like she could be so happy about everything because of it. Like it's so
Yep.
demented.
It is. Yeah. It's like, well, that doesn't fit into my conception of what my life is. So it's not true. And so you see that when she's talking about how she gets along with her older children, she's like, everything's great. But we see from her relationship with Georgie that it's not. And then when she does see her daughter at the restaurant, they seem estranged. It's like a very awkward. There's a very awkward, like, oh, hello. Like it doesn't seem like she's close with her daughter, like her older kids or their kids or her grandkids who are the same age as her kids.
I think the grandkids and the kids, that's the only thing I can get is that they seem friendly with each other.
Yeah.
But that's probably because they go to school together.
That's probably because they're in the same, like they're in the same grade.
Right. Yeah,
like
yeah, they're graduating at the same time.
Because those kids would, like, one of those kids are like the aunts of the other kids and they're the same age.
It's absolutely wild. Like
it's insane.
Yeah, it was an interesting movie. My question to you, do you feel, we talked about this earlier, but do you feel like this is going to be kind of a award bait movie? Does it deserve, because there are movies that kind of come out, like, again, I watch a lot of the Academy Award stuff, but like Nomadland, hated that movie, but it's such Oscar bait. It's about, I could go on and on about why I don't like that movie. But
which was that one? I don't remember.
So Frances McDormand, it was about 2 or 3 years ago. I want to say it won Best Picture, but I know it won an award. I don't know if it was Best Picture or not. But it's about this woman who is a nomad. So she doesn't like to live in a house. Like, she likes to live outside, and she sometimes works for Amazon, which thematically makes no sense. Like, she's like loves to live in nature and loves to like say, F you to capitalism. And then she works for Amazon sometimes and is happy about it. And then like, what's so funny about this movie is that there's so many people in her life who want to give her a home. There's about 5 people in this movie. Like, she tutors someone and she said, you want to stay with us tonight? And she's like, nope, I got a place. And then she like lives outside.
Oh my God, really?
Yeah, like that's the whole thing, is that she's like a nomad. But I absolutely hated that movie. And it's really Oscar bait. It's like, Frances McDormand's like a big actress for the Oscars, and like it just feels like an Oscar movie. But I guess my question to you is, like, do you feel like this is Oscar bait, or do you genuinely think it's a good movie? Because I think it's a little bit of both, right? Because you could tell it's like it's actors movie, but then it's a genuinely good movie in my opinion.
I think I have seen the Oscar bait movies, especially some of the like the biopics where you're like,
right,
this
Bohemian Rhapsody, like that was not the greatest movie, but it was nominated for an Oscar.
It's like, this exists just to get Oscars, basically. That like these people want to win an Oscar, and so they're gonna work in Amazon to live outside. But this one, I think, I kind of agree with you. I think it's both. I think it's definitely Oscar bait. Like, it feels kind of like Oscar bait, but I do think it is a good movie, and that is like interesting. It has some stuff to say, and it doesn't feel like it's being weird and like dour just for the sake of being weird and dour, which is sometimes
do it for the sake of character, for sure.
Yeah, because that's sometimes my criticism of some of those Oscar bait movies is like if I know, like, you're just being weird to be weird, and to like, it's not coming kind of organically from this story. You're just trying to like manipulate the audience into being like, look how deep we are. And
did you hear Saltburn, or did you not want? Do you have even heard?
I have heard it is very weird.
That's a good example.
I heard it's wild as hell.
Watch it. I had a good time. So again, we have our AMC Stubs thing that we do. So Marianne, she wanted to watch a movie, and she's like, oh, it's between this and Silent Night, and she's like, let's see Saltburn. I'm like, I don't know much about it, but sure. Like, I like the guy who played Elvis and Presley, and the guy from Euphoria. So we went to go see it, and I watched it, and I was like, oh, that was fun, because there's a line in the movie about, because just tell you what the movie's about. It's about this guy who goes to school with this rich person. He kind of like starts falling in love with him, let's say, and then he goes to his castle, and they like stuff happens. But he's infatuated with this guy, and there's a line where he says, I love him, but I hate him. And in the end of the movie, I said, I love this, but I hate it. It's like, there's something about it that is so, like, I'm glued to the screen. There's not a moment where I'm not interested, but also this is such a weird movie. But anyways, at the end of the movie, Marianne's like, oh, I'm so sorry that I showed you this movie. I was like, no, it was just kind of weird, and I kind of liked it because of that. And I was the one who ended up enjoying it the most, because I'm like, it was a weird movie, and I had a good time. I'd rather have like a weird movie than have a really boring movie. But that's a really good example of a movie that just feels very Oscar baity, where it's just like there's so many weird things happening that's just for the sake of being weird.
Yeah, I mean, I will say, I always say, like, I'd rather watch something that's swinging for the fences and missing
Sure.
every single, every single time and falling flat on its face than watch something that's like very middle of the road and boring. Like,
Yeah.
give me something that I actually maybe actively hate, because at least I'm feeling an emotion while I'm watching it, instead of like, oh my God, is it over? I'm so tired.
Thanksgiving's a good example of that, where I thought it was going to be really kitschy, and it just wasn't. Did you see it, or have you heard?
I haven't seen it, but I've heard it was like very medium. Like,
It was just a medium movie that does medium stuff, and it's interesting because I ranked like the movies I saw this year, and the movie I disliked the most was actually John Wick out of all the movies. It's just because it was so,
really?
yeah, because it was just so, here's an action movie for the sake of an action movie, and I'm just like, that's not for me. I like action movies, but I like something in there, and it's just like to the books action movie, and it just wasn't for me.
It's so funny that you brought this up, because this week on Supergirl Radio, plug, we watched the first episode of The Continental from the world of John Wick.
I didn't even know that was a thing.
It's on Peacock. It is like a mini series. It's like 3 episodes. When I started episode 1, I saw it was an hour and a half. Let me tell you, the curse word that came out of my mouth, I was like, no. But I haven't seen any of the John Wick movies, so we had like a whole discussion, and Rebecca had quickly watched the first 3 movies.
Wow. That's Rebecca for you.
That's commitment. Listen, she's not
Yeah.
doing it halfway. She's not just gonna like mostly watch the episode like I did sometimes on my phone. She was committed. But yeah, she was saying like, oh, the first couple, the John Wick movies, they're pretty fun. They're like fun action. But the one thing I noticed when I was like on the internet looking at how many John Wick movies they were, is the runtime creeping up. So like the first movie is like an hour and a half, and like the second movie is like 2 hours, and like the third movie is like 2 hours and 15 minutes. By the time you get to the fourth movie, it's like 2.5 hours. There's no reason why a fun action movie needs to be almost 3 hours long.
I fell asleep.
You're not Killers of the Flower Moon here.
And Killer Flower Moon was good. Because it actually feels like a TV show. But no, I fell asleep, and I was in such a bad mood about it. I was just like, I remember leaving the theater and saying, I want to go. I want to go home. This was so bad. And I was so tired. I was so like, this is not a movie for me. And yeah, no, I fell asleep. I hated that movie.
You're like, this is not worth my stubs.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't worth my $0. No, I those are the type of movies I don't love. I rather, like you said, I rather have a weird movie that's more character based than here's this blanket action film. That's why, like, even like, and I'm not saying Aquaman's gonna be bad or anything, but like the Aquaman type movies where I'm like, oh, am I gonna be entertained? This is another 2.5 hour movie where he's in the water and he's fighting some people,
Yeah, I know. And that's what I liked about this one. It was like a little long for me, but at least it was like, it felt different from anything I'd seen recently. It was engaging. It was weird. I didn't know, like, not every part of it worked for me. Like the tone shifts were a little abrupt sometimes, but like it was going for something. It had like layers of meaning, like we said, like it had symbolism. It was trying. Like it wasn't just like, oh, I'm just going to make an Oscar bait movie and here's like the paint by numbers. We got to get 1, 2, and 3 in there and then we're good. It was like, let's get weird. There's going to be butterflies. Like there's going to be a hot dog emergency within the first 5 minutes of the movie.
This is the tone we're looking for. But yeah, and I'm glad we watched it. I didn't know what to expect with it, but I think this was like a perfect movie for the podcast because it just is so different and there's stuff to talk about. But in the comments or in our email, let us know what you want to see because we want to do more stuff on newer releases, but we feel like there's not a lot of new releases. So especially with the writing strike and all that, so the new releases aren't as frequent right now. So
but if something's coming up that you guys are excited about, definitely let us know. Send us an email at thelegendaryladies@gmail.com or leave us a comment below in the YouTube video or tweet at us at legends_podcast or leave us a comment anywhere basically and let us know what you're interested in because we'll put it on the list for sure, and then that'll allow us to like get it out pretty soon so it's still in the conversation.
And then the episode we're doing next week, because I'm pretty sure we're pretty set on it, is actually going to be a pilot pod for What is the pilot called?
I believe it's called Obliterate It. It is starring or co-starring Nick Zano, our good friend Nate from Legends of Tomorrow. So it's been apparently it's been doing well on Netflix. I think it came out like maybe a week ago. So it was in like the top 5 or top 10 or whatever. So Nick Zano, good for you, buddy. Good for you. So if you guys have watched Obliterate It, and you want to give us some feedback and tell us what you thought, definitely, send us feedback wherever we just said, on our Patreon, on our email, on Instagram or Twitter or, TikTok or whatever, and let us know what you thought. And we'll read it when we do our pilot pod next week.
For sure. And let's go around the table, see what's coming up. So Morgan, what is coming up for you?
As I mentioned, I'm a co-host on Supergirl Radio, where this week we talked about John Wick. But next week we are doing our annual Christmas movie. We are letting our Patreon supporters decide which of 4 what I'm sure are high quality Christmas movies we're gonna watch with Supergirl actors or actresses. So I'm pulling for like the 9 Kittens of Christmas with Brandon Routh. That's because I like cats.
You've been rooting for that movie for a while now.
They never let me watch it. But honestly, we're out of Katie McGraw Christmas movies. So now is my time. Now are my cats of Christmas.
I'm glad that you're finally getting there. I'm rooting for you. I would vote if I could.
Kat, what's going on for you?
I do have a Kickstarter coming up, but it's only for a week because it's the holiday season, so we're taking a little bit of a break.
That seems reasonable,
right? Yeah, so that's not too bad, and it's actually a Pride cover, a variant cover, very limited, of Haunting and Like Father Daughter crossover book that came out about 2 years ago. It was actually our first collaboration between me and Phil, and it's ghosts meets superheroes. But this, like we said, this is actually a very limited cover because we're going to be selling it at Pride, so this is going to be our Pride exclusive cover. But obviously we know not everyone's on the East Coast and going to Pride, so we wanted an opportunity for our readers to get the cover as well. So go check that out. Other than that, I think we're all just kind of gearing for the holidays. I'm getting my wisdom tooth pulled out tomorrow, so I'm gearing up for that.
so I'm gonna have Mike send you his tried and true mashed potato recipe.
I like it.
Life-changing. It's amazing. It includes cream cheese. It's the New York Times recipe. It's not like hand it down, and I'm not giving away family secrets right now. I'm giving away New York Times secrets, but it's very good. And when I got my wisdom teeth out a couple of years ago and couldn't make it to Comic-Con, I lived on those mashed potatoes. It was mashed potatoes and ice cream and like sherbet. That was like my food groups. So my advice to you, is somebody who also got their wisdom teeth out, maybe a little older than they should have gotten their wisdom teeth out, is when they tell you when you can take your pain medication, like take it on the dot. I was like, I never want to feel the touch of reality on my face. And do the icing on your
that I heard you don't want the black blues. Question mark for you though, did you have all your wisdom teeth taken out? Because I only am getting one out. So
I had all of them out.
Yeah.
It sucked so bad, Kat. I had to move the ice from one side of my face to the other. I have also been fact checked in real time that the recipe is actually from Give Me Some Oven, not from the New York Times.
But still not family owned. I'm still
not giving away family secrets. And I will send you this recipe as soon as we get off, Kat, because you're gonna need it.
I am, I've taken the whole weekend off. I don't remember last time I took a weekend off where I wasn't going on vacation. So I'm very excited.
You're gonna want to sleep like a lot, I'd say. A lot of sleep, a lot of drugs, a lot of mashed potatoes. I understand that what I'm describing is my ideal weekend, but it's gonna hurt a little bit. Oh yeah, no, but I want to hear everything that you say when you come off the drugs.
Oh, so what's great is I'm not getting drugged. So yeah. So I'm only getting the Novocaine. They told my doctor, he told me like, he was like really, really like, this is what you might go. These are all the things that could go wrong. It's like, if you get that, if you go to sleep, you might die. You see, if I hit this nerve, you might never talk again. this is like a 99.9% this will happen, but just like be warned. So I'm like, should I go to sleep? He's like, that's up to you. And I said, well, maybe I'll stay up then. He's like, okay.
I was absolutely like, I do not want to be conscious for this. I don't want to know it's happening. Put me all the way under.
Yeah.
And apparently when I came out from the drugs, I was a big fan of them. I've been told.
Good.
I asked some of the nurses if we could have some to take home because it was quote unquote the good shit. And then I was talking so much that they were afraid I was gonna like pull out the stitches. So
no.
Mike handed me my phone while I was high as a kite on drugs, and the text messages that I sent during that time period were truly unhinged. He was like, text me your thoughts, but I did not just text him. No, I text other people.
That is not good. No, I will not be on drugs, sadly. So I only have
I'm
the
sorry.
Novocaine.
I'm sorry you're missing that part of the experience.
Yeah.
The drugs were apparently truly magical for me.
I was on drugs when I had my kidney stones, so I know how that feels.
I bet.
That was also a magical time.
That's something you definitely want drugs for.
Yeah, no, I had those twice, so I had drugs for that. But yeah, for this wisdom tooth, I'm not. But also, I had one pulled out before, and it wasn't too bad. But this is the surgically removed one, so but it's only one. It is only one,
That's
and everyone I've talked to has had 4 taken out and said, "Yeah, this is bad." I'm like, I'm hoping it won't be as bad.
I feel like you're gonna actually recover from that pretty quickly. I'm sure you already know this, but don't drink anything through a straw.
Yeah, I've heard that one. Yeah,
I can,
and I don't drink from straws ever, so I'm good.
I've heard. I had a friend who got their wisdom teeth removed and then got dry socket, and she said it was like the worst pain. So I was like, my big thing was like, I'm gonna do everything possible to avoid getting that. Like that is the goal, is to get through this without getting that.
Yeah, no, I'm planning on. I have to see if I can eat. So I'm very excited because I think I haven't heard anything yet because I got my one wisdom tooth taken out. I was able to eat solid food, so I'm hoping because it's just the one.
Because it's just
I might be able.
You probably
eat
can.
on the other side.
You might want to go easy on like day 1, but day 2 you might be able to eat like almost normal stuff.
I was thinking I was thinking like Wendy's or something, so you get like fries because it's like half mashed potatoes.
Yeah, like I think you could do a French fry. And this has been our wisdom teeth corner.
We actually maybe we'll make this a Patreon, so we have one. I might cut it out so we could do we'll do a
journey
Patreon
of wisdom teeth.
Yeah. Well, hopefully you guys enjoyed. This is the Legendary Ladies podcast, and once you guys when I don't have my wisdom tooth pulled out.
Well, that's gonna do it for us, and remember, stay legendary.